So we know this is the Power universe, and this is Raising Kanan, and this is all the way back in the 90s, right? And the current Power is set in today, in 2021. Um, so in Power Book 2, we see Tariq, he basically strikes a reunion. He partners up with Monet and the Tajada family, right? We know that family is from Queens, New York, right? So I want to ask you guys, are we going to see any connections teased in Raising Kanan? Because if Monet and they hyped up her husband, the Tajada, like Mr. Tajada, like he's some super, super tough, like OG kingpin guy, right? So if he's been around and his name rings out so much, and if Kanan is going to become to be as influential, and his mother too, like if they're going to rise up in the ranks of the criminal underworld in Queens, isn't it plausible that these people might cross paths at some point in time? Because in the streets, when there's a lot of notable people doing their thing on in the streets, in the criminal underworld, their names ring out. They hear about each other through the streets. They know of each other's names. And eventually they cross paths. Sometimes it's out of respect, and they're not really a tense thing. But to me, it feels like if this Tajada guy is as big as, if he really was putting in work all this time, like they're saying in book 2, I feel like there might be some connections back here in the 90s that eventually, tie into Raising Kanan. So I want to ask you guys, your thoughts about that. So, Dana, what do you think? You're muted, by the way.
Okay, because I was probably making the most faces when I said that, because I don't want that. I want each power thing to stand on its own. And I feel that by introducing Tajada, either will you see him physically, I'm okay with like a name. Hey, Tajada, have you heard about that guy? And then we move on. That's fine. That's cool. I don't want my Power series to start interconnecting that way. I think, like I said before, it's a whole universe. Each planet has its own little world. Let them stay on their own planet. I don't feel the need for that to happen. I think that each show, each series is strong on its own, and we don't need that sort of connection right away. I don't want to see any Tommy. I don't want to see I don't Ghost. I don't want to see none of them. I want to focus on these characters, and I don't feel the need to bring those characters from book 2 into book 3. I think that not to call up Kevin Feige, but there's a reason as to why we didn't see Doctor Strange in WandaVision. I don't want it to be like, oh, that guy is just overshadowing what's really going on. Because now we have, say, Monet, she's meeting with Raquel. I don't want that situation to happen. But if that's something that is inevitable, I don't want them to be buddy-buddy. I just want them to just be two great, incredibly strong women who say hi and bye. That's all I want.
Yeah, like because I think that I didn't, if let's say Tajada, the guy, shows up, or Monet, a young Monet shows up, I don't want them to be reoccurring characters. Like,
I don't
but
want them to be any character.
you could have like just one episode maybe where like they show up, and just to show that these people were around too at this time, and then keep it moving, after that.
The fact that you know that information should be okay enough. Just because you live in Queens and I don't know, Pookie lives in Queens, doesn't mean that we should necessarily meet each other. We run our own separate business separately. There's no reason for us to connect. There's no reason for Tajada or Monet to be in here. Let them do what they do, and let Raquel and her family do what they do. And that kind of blending thing, I just don't want that to happen. I feel that it'll just be a distraction, even if it's for a second.
Okay.
There's no need.
Okay. But I'm gonna let Rich go, but real quick, I just want to say, like, if this show Raising Kanan continues to go on for multiple seasons, eventually we are gonna have to run into some characters that we know.
No.
Eventually it's gonna have to happen. So,
Not right away. No, this can be the Kanan story minus my friend Ghost. Everything is from Kanan's perspective. So we don't necessarily need that. Remember that episode where they dragged out all of those episodes by showing us everyone's point of view, right? So, for example, remember how we saw that one point of view when we really didn't see everybody else and how they interacted until later on? Let this show just be that. Show the point of view of Kanan. You know, if you have to mention Ghost by any means at all, have him like you call him up on the payphone. That's literally it.
Yeah, and that's cool. You know, I'm okay with subtle references, but I'm just saying, eventually there has to be something. If this show continues,
no,
there has to be, because like in the real Power show, they talk like they go way back. Like they talk like Kanan, Tommy, and Ghost. They talk like they go way back. Like they were in diapers together. That's how they talk in the show.
We're now in high school, which is past diapers,
I know.
Therefore we don't need each other.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, so if we're already at high school point, it's only a matter of time before.
No, you can rewrite history. Plenty of people have done it.
But Rich, what's your take on this whole thing, like with the Tajadas and then also the crossovers and stuff?
Well, in terms of the Tajadas, I kind of feel like I am expecting some type of tease that at least the father, because you said that they made a very big deal about him. I mean, but I'm expecting some type of tease because, again, it is a connected universe. You know, every time you watch this show now, and I'm sure, and when you watch book 2 and book 4 and book 5, they have that whole intro, the animation intro, Power Universe. So I kind of feel like they don't have to connect it, but I kind of also feel like they can have a tidbit in there that is some connection, whether it's something that there's another character that just happens to be working with one of the Tajadas, and they mention in name, you don't actually see the character. That can totally happen. But we'll see, because I think my thought is, if I'm Courtney Kemp or 50 Cent, obviously you want these shows to stand on their own, but nothing rules out introducing something in one show, and then if it's and then you're also getting people interested so that they may consider watching the other show. That'll be a nice connecting point if they decide to take that route. Do they need to do it? Absolutely not. But one thing I will say is this. I agree 110% what you said about Ghost. Because, again, they had this whole thing where Kanan got set up. He got set up by Ghost and Tasha. So you have to have that because that's how the character ends up in jail. So I kind of feel like you're going to have to, at some point, when this show ends, when the show is done, they're going to have to get around showing that one way or another. Does it mean they're actually going to show Ghost and Tommy or Tasha for that matter? Probably not. But again, there was tension between Tasha and Kanan. I would also say, because Kanan was always looking at Tasha and stuff like that. Yeah, it kind of feels like you have to, at some point, at the very end, allude to that. Unless we're just going to completely ignore all of that would happen, which wouldn't make any kind of sense. Because that's the question that everybody had in original Power is, what happened between Kanan and these characters? Why is the relationship so fractured? And yes, the writers ruined that when they decided to have the Super Friends team up and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like you have to explain that. The whole thing of him getting set up. Because he was in jail for a while. I'm pretty sure he lost a lot of his life, a lot of his adult life in prison. So we have to see how that happened. That's just my opinion. But we'll see what happens.
But he ain't an adult yet.
But they meet before they're adults, like, because if you listen to how they talk in Power, if you go back and like watch the first few seasons, they talk like they go way back, like kindergarten or something. But obviously you know, it's not the case in Raising Kanan because it's already high school age, but it's gonna have to happen eventually. Then, you know, if they're talking like that in the main power, it's only a matter of time now before they actually meet, you know, at this age. So there has to be something that comes, like, you know, later on.
We'll have a civil war.
If this show gets renewed for season 3, like, there needs to start being some references at that point.
I'm good with season 5, and then they can have a civil war thing, and we meet everything.